Straight ahead, a first for the Farm Monitor. For the first time ever, our cameras are traveling abroad, taking you to new heights and new destinations. To Havana and the third U.S.-Cuba Agricultural Business Conference. Join us as we learn about the state of Cuban agriculture and the government's policies geared towards boosting output and attracting foreign direct investment. We'll also engage with policymakers to better understand the current political relations between both countries and the possibilities for importing Cuban products and investing in Cuban production. It's a special on-location edition of the Farm Monitor from Cuba, and it starts right now. Following a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, the U.S.-Cuba Agricultural Business Conference was back. It's a lot of information to process, and our cameras were there every step of the way. However, we weren't alone. Others representing the U.S. agricultural sector included officials from the National Corn Growers Association, the World Poultry Foundation, and Holstein Association USA, just to name a few. The conference included comments from Cuban dignitaries, as well as breakout sessions and tours to area farms and cooperatives. Once there, we learned about the many needs Cuba's farmers have and the struggles they face day in and day out in an effort to feed an entire nation, all while maneuvering through the many challenges of imposed sanctions. For Georgia Farm Bureau Chief Administrative Officer Jeffrey Harvey, this was his first time attending the conference and first time visiting the Republic of Cuba. Like so many of us, the trip left a lasting impression.
It's just a good opportunity to come down and see a different side of agriculture that we're not exactly used to, explore the opportunities as far as trade possibilities in the future. And Georgia produces a lot of different products that the Cuban people could utilize, and just exploring those opportunities and seeing if there's ways that we can move more of our products down to Cuba.
We always knew that the Cubans wanted to import more U.S. wheat and corn, and this just sort of really hammers that point down, and the openness of the people here to say, listen, we really need to trade, we want to buy your commodities, and they want to export to the U.S. And that's really important because they need money to buy our commodities. So it's been a real experience.
Hi, John. Thanks so much. Just a small sample of what we learned here at the U.S.-Cuban Agricultural Conference. Now, up next, a look at how Cuba goes about farming here on the island and the kind words regarding America's farmers expressed to me by Cuba's president, Miguel Diaz-Canel. Cuba. aka the Republic of Cuba. A country that for well over a century has endured its share of challenges: hurricanes, political unrest, and of course, a global pandemic. All of it in some form, some way, resulting in the country being shut off from the rest of the world, isolated if you will. And one of the sectors hit the hardest: agriculture.
Our productions have been affected because we haven't had the availability of the raw materials to work.
Logramos procesar.
Well, we have also lack of inputs as the containers to be able to fill and pack all the products that we produce here.
I mean, honestly, it's like taking a step back in time and seeing the way that they farm down here and the resources they have access to. And we just, we're so blessed in our country and our farmers. I know we have a tough time producing, but we've got state-of-the-art technology. Our research and education programs in the United States are amazing, and it helps propel our farmers to a completely different level than what we've seen down here.
A term often associated with Cuba is revolution. There was the Fidel Castro-led revolution in the mid to late 1950s. Then came the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 90s, resulting in another revolution here in Cuba, one of the organic nature. More specifically, organic farming, a practice that wasn't born out of choice like in the US, but more so out of necessity. Before the Soviet collapse, Cuba's agricultural needs such as fertilizer, pesticides, and farm equipment were imported directly from Russia. After the collapse, those much-needed items became less and less, largely due to imposed sanctions. It's an issue they still struggle with today. And although Cuba's farming practices are now largely organic, the farmers we spoke with said they are open to more traditional methods of farming as well as GMOs. During a special meeting at the Palace of the Revolution with Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, I asked the president directly what he thought of America's farming practices and U.S. farmers in general. His response? One of admiration and respect. President Diaz-Canel saying, quote, "We can learn a lot from you about the application of technology and the development of productions that we know are very efficient." He added, "We would very much like access to the same technology and products as America's farmers, and are very impressed with the way they've been able to develop them over the years." I'm with Doug Kiesling. He's a fifth-generation farmer from Chase, Kansas. And Doug, we heard the president talk about his admiration for America's farmers and the technology that you all use. We heard the farmers down here talk about their admiration for you. So when you hear that as a farmer from the U.S., how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes you feel good to be appreciated as a farmer. But you know what we're learning is that farmers around the world are all resilient. They're all proud, innovative, all of these words, and farmers around the world will make things work, either through the pandemic or through trials.
In Havana, Cuba, for the Farm Monitor, I'm Ray DeLessio.
Paul, tell us about the coalition for our viewers that don't know what it is, what its function and mission is.
The coalition has been around for about 9 years now. Our mission is to improve the agricultural relations between the United States and Cuba. Ultimately, what we're looking to do is end the embargo, allow us to increase our agricultural exports to the island, normalize our trade relations. Cuba Agricultural Conference is about getting producers, farmers in the United States and farmers in Cuba together. Here we are in the field. There's no better experience than having two producers, two farmers get together to exchange know-how, to get to understand each other better, and also how we can improve our friendship relationships and our commercial relationships. That's the heart of why we come down to Cuba. We also meet with other buying agencies to sign contracts with our Cuban counterparts, and eventually to look for some foreign direct investment opportunities. That seems to be a new opportunity the Cuban government has frankly been talking about for too long. But given the message that we heard last night, I believe that is a course that they've accepted. And so if they want to privatize part of their economy, the United States should move into that space. That's what we do all around the world. Cuba should be no exception.
You've told me the embargo for 60 years hasn't worked. Does agriculture in the U.S. share that sentiment, you think?
I do. I mean, we need some common sense to this idea of embargo. After 60 years, whatever we have initially attempted to do, set out to do, has not worked. We have no influence here in Cuba. We do export food to Cuba, but we only export about 15% of what Cuba purchases from global suppliers on the world. Clearly, there's much more that can be done given the cultural, familial, historical, and agricultural ties between our both countries. So I would say that the embargo has been a failure.
For U.S. farmers, what's the biggest opportunity? I know Georgia's exporting a lot of poultry here. Are there other opportunities like that for other states across the country?
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned poultry. Right now, Cuba's consumption of poultry represents about 40% of the protein needs of a Cuban diet. For our U.S. poultry producers, Cuba is the third largest market in the world. Mexico, China, Cuba. For U.S. rice producers, Cuba could be the second largest market in the world. Certainly for soy and corn to help increase animal production, which is certainly needed here. What we've seen over even the past year, as pork production has been declining here on the island, pork prices for the Cuban family have tripled because of the lack of feed. And we can go on down the road to wheat. Certainly this could be a market for us and many others.
What do you see next? What happens next? You've been doing this over 25 years. You've seen the changes or non-changes that have happened. What happens next? Where do we go from here?
It's a great question. I can't say I'm optimistic. I think the politics is going to be very difficult right now. It seems like old habits die hard. That being said, I think agriculture plays a very important role in improving this relations. We have a lot of people in rural America that would like nothing better to come to Cuba. I'm sure they'd like to be able to drink some Cuban rum, smoke some Cuban tobacco, and be able to see how farmers produce, help their neighbors out while increasing their export trade.
Final point, I heard today 521 million Cuban cigars purchased in the United States last year. American cigar smokers are finding a way to get those cigars into the country despite the embargo that exists there. Is there even greater opportunity for these farmers of tobacco in Cuba to sell even more to the U.S. if they'll lift this embargo?
I'm sure they would like nothing more. They've said that constantly to us. And just very simple, if we can buy more tobacco, more cigars from Cuba, say 50 million of the 520 million that are being consumed right now in the United States per year, just a small percentage of that would increase their purchasing power to buy our goods. That's a very simple solution. I hope Washington hears the message.